Welcome back to another reading and correcting of The Used Child. I'm Ekindar, the Tigerite, and I, the Tiger Supervisor. Today we're doing Chapter 4. Where's my cursor? There's the cursor. Tristan's house was far from the town so he could enjoy the peace and quiet. He had built the house because it was what had been expected. Humans needed their habitation to be divided into many rooms, each with its own function. He needed none of that, but that would have set him apart too much if he'd built the house and attached his if he so but that would have he needed none of that, but that would have set him apart too much. So he built a house and attached his workshop to it. He built it by the forest to lower the chances of anyone approaching from that direction without alerting him. His property had multiple large predators living in it, property on it, and he'd had to teach them he wasn't food for them. He hadn't killed any of them because they made for an aggressive security. The medic, the tavern owner's wife, as well as a few of the farmers tried to convince Tech he needed to remove them for his own safety, but Tech was just too gentle of a man. He couldn't imagine disturbing even dangerous animals. He couldn't imagine hurting even dangerous animals. Relocating them had been suggested, but how would that disrupt the local ecology? In the end, he'd agreed to install a deterrent field between his house and the tree line to keep the animals from wandering too close. Stopped before the house and turned, expecting to see Alex in the distance. Not seeing him, Tristan waited to give him time to come into view. Alex didn't show. He'd already given up. Good, he thought that odd, considering Alex had persevered all these years, but it was for the best. He went to the door of the attached building. The only times he opened the door to the house were when one of the townsfolk buzzed it, and it only happened when one of them felt like Tech had been alone for too long. None of them seemed to comprehend that Tech didn't need to socialize. That his time at the tavern was more than enough to satisfy what little need he had for company. Tech still welcomed them in and talked with them for a few minutes before having to get back to his work. His workroom was one large space with a counter along the back wall with cabinets over and under it. In the space between them, all of Tristan's power tools hung. In the cabinet under the counter, he kept those tools too large to be kept on it. The cabinets above the counter held a variety of components he needed to do repairs or modification. The far wall on his right held his collection of guns, 58 of them, each of the most recent design from the 12 top-of-the-line manufacturers. Each one of them were in working orders and fine-tuned to work better than the manufacturer's schematic indicated they should. On the wall connected to the house, the cabinets were filled with data chips, the documentation on everything he'd taken apart, and the associated reports regarding the tests the manufacturers had put these items through, as well as any reports independent tester that filed. The only set of data chip there that didn't have an accompanying item somewhere in his workshop were the ship's schematic. He'd yet to find a way to store a ship in his workshop, so he contented himself with those and took smaller ships apart when he was off planet, so the portmaster wouldn't be too aware of how knowledgeable Tech was. The cabinet along this wall held a variety of locks, security system, and sensors. Like the weapons, he had taken each apart and rebuilt them. He knew each flaws and exploit. The center of the room held his workspace. 3 long tables welded together to form one continuous surface, secured to the floor so he couldn't move when he put his weight on it in the process of taking something stubborn apart. Currently, he had 4 projects on it, but only the RJ-23 rifle was active. The Titanus lock was a flawed model, so he couldn't do anything with it until he either repaired it or obtained a new one. The Afron motor was done, but he was waiting a few more days before letting the Galbeat farmer know. The Afron motor was done, but he was waiting a few more days before letting the Galbeat farmer know. It wouldn't do for them to think Tech could fix such a complicated device in under 2 days. It had actually taken him half a day to make a PIFD computer was the medic's, which he'd gotten to clone Okay, we should get to. Okay. The Tomeka PIFD computer was the medic's, which she'd get to closer to when she expected it back. All it needed was a full part upgrade. He stood before the disassembled RJ-23, taking it apart had been simple. Like all military weapon, ease of repair meant every component had to be easy to remove and replace on site with a minimum of tools by soldiers who might not know anything about the weapon they were using. The power supply was connected to a tester. He'd had it run while he was eating, and now the result told them that the default pack that came with the rifle suffered from a trickle leak, as well as a gradual capping of the amount of power it took. The scanner estimated that after 300 charges, the pack would be useless. Tristan made a note of the pack's ID number on his computer and had it start a search for any other reports. The manufacturer's test result hadn't mentioned this cap, so he wanted to know if it had occurred in anyone else who did their own test. Did he have a defective part, or was this a design flaw? He set it aside. Someone in town would be able to make use of a less than optimal power pack. So he pulled one out of the cabinet. Fortunately, even if this one was a new design, to go along with the new rifle, it still had to have the same shape as the other packs. The military hated having to deal with figuring out if they had the right pack for the right rifle. Any power pack designed for them had to be able to fit each and every weapon it was classified for. Connected the new pack to the fast charger and reassembled the rifle. With a properly working power pack, his next step was to test the maximum yield capability of the beam. The documentation said the yield was of 18.38 kefron, which meant it could burn a hole through 2 feet of reinforced plating. The problem Tristan had noticed was that the component between the pack and the beam generator couldn't take that kind of power. The first thing to go would be the capacitor. They'd explode and take the soldier with it. He took out the plating from a cabinet and secured it to one end of the workroom. He placed 8 6-inch plates to ensure he didn't make a hole in the wall. Repairing walls had been amusing the first few times, but now he saw that as a failure of preparation on his part. The beam probably wouldn't go through even half of that, but it was possible that he could improve on the manufacturer's design. He locked the rifle down and connected it to the computer so he could activate it remotely when a window opened on the screen, showing him the house's doorway with Alex standing in it. So, he hadn't given up. Had he decided to fortify himself with alcohol, taken the time to eat, more likely the tavern's patron had questioned him, delaying him. He looked at the rifle, then the screen, deciding which one was more important. He shut the window down and took the pack out of the charger. The first test revealed that the standard pack for the rifle couldn't even provide the energy needed to reach the maximum beam strength. The rifle's components were subpar, each draining some of the energy away into heat. That was what the military got for trying to save money. He was going to have to change every one of them to run his test properly. He shut down the window, showing Alex at his door again. This was the 5th time Alex had buzzed the door. Tristan appreciated his perseverance. He'd taken held. He'd taken needed to replace the he'd taken He'd taken the components he needed to replace from the cabinets when the knock came. It was faint, but for it to even reach him, that had been determined banging. He brought up the window and watched as Alex slammed his fist on the door 4 times, matching the sound he heard. He let him bang on it until he tired himself. But as another set of banging happened, Tristan realized that Alex might not tire himself out. He remembered him having a good level of endurance when he had been punching, but now it would be an interesting test of his limit. But how long would it take for the man to decide to try his workroom door? He locked the workroom as he exited into the house, and put his mask as he headed for the door. Tech smiled at the glowering man. We're not done, Alex stated. Tech looked around, confirming that no one stood outside the camera's field, while Tristan decided how to proceed. He decided he didn't want to play any games. His face lost all expression, which seemed to please Alex. We are. No, you made me a promise. I did no such thing. Jack said Jack was a mask, a fabrication, a tool I used to manipulate you. I had him say whatever was needed to keep you under my control. Alex ground his teeth. You promised that you'd love me for. I did not. You promised it on the Defender, Alex said like that, like it should mean something to Tristan. He canted his head, studying the human. This was losing the amusement factor. He could kill Alex. There was no one here to see. It would be simple to destroy the body. He had some organic dissolvers stored away. Except the portmaster knew about their interaction, about Alex's interest in tech. He just vanished would lead to question. Go away. Tristan slammed the door and headed to his workroom. This concludes Chapter 4 of The Used Child. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next one's going to be, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the story as well as the other one in the series, they are available on all major retailers. If you want to support me, you can do that on my Patreon, and as well as get access to basically everything I've written. And if you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And with that, oh wait, the links are in the note. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.